Okay, Rick, so the question is why Trump is going here even. I mean, does this unfounded, let's just call it what it is, lie about Joe Biden being on drugs or planning to get shot up with drugs before the debate suggest maybe a lack of confidence on Trump's part?
Well, as you know, Chris, Trump tries to have it both ways on all things. Debates are about setting expectations, and he's set expectations in either direction. And he's always looking for an excuse of why he loses. And so he's setting out this unknown, because I doubt that the president's going to submit to a drug test. And if he did submit to a drug test, then Donald Trump should submit to exactly the same drug test. And I don't know what it matters. Is there a clause in the contract that says no drugs during debate? I don't think so. So it's all distraction. It's all designed to create some diversion so that if he doesn't do well in the debate, well, it's because his opponent was on drugs. I don't know what's in that mind of his. I know that what Biden needs to do is he needs to talk about the future. He should not be talking about his accomplishments, because that has not worked and is not working. And he has to set out two stark choices between two futures. And that future is the economy. And the problem is right now, the undecided voters by 53 to about 39% believe that Trump is better on the economy. He must reverse that. If he doesn't, he's going to be in real trouble.
That is, Sam, what we've been hearing a lot from Democrats, that this is a choice between chaos and competence, and that's what they want the president to get across on Thursday. But Joe Biden wanted this early debate to change the trajectory of a race that has been stubbornly stuck, right? It's so neck and neck, and tiny swings this way or that way, but no real change in the bottom line of this race. So how does Joe Biden do that? How does he take advantage of what he wanted, which was this early debate for a reset?
Well, he's got to get all those performance-enhancing drugs in his system, Chris, obviously. No, I think he does what Rick does, basically. He's got to make this into a choice, right? The referendum on his legacy and his time in office, it hasn't worked, and typically it does not work if you're an incumbent. I mean, this is the same thing that Barack Obama struggled with when he was running against Mitt Romney in 2012, is turning this into a referendum. And what Obama did then was he made it entirely about Mitt Romney's record at Bain Capital and this idea that this guy was going to come in and outsource all your jobs. Biden has had a trickier time doing that, but he's tried a few different things, and most of it is centered around the issue of democracy and versus autocracy, chaos versus normalcy. And I think that's what they're going to go for here. It's like, can you actually hammer home the message effectively enough to turn this race into a choice election? Now, I will say, you know, yes, it's been a remarkably stable race. What the Biden people are heartened about a little bit is that in the post-conviction polls, you've seen a slight uptick in Biden's direction. My big question heading into the debate is, do they try to capitalize on that? How much do they focus on Trump's convictions, if at all? Do they try to put that into some larger framework? And if so, what is that framework?
So, Rick, the New York Times spoke with voters who they say are watching the debate with their hands over their eyes. We know that these are the folks that both sides desperately want. They don't want them to stay home. Here's part of what the Times wrote, quote, "It has all the makings of a train wreck with chemical spillage that is lethally toxic," an Arizona Democrat said. And an independent voter from Washington State who usually supports Democrats said, "This is the most apprehensive I've felt about a presidential debate. I sense a disaster in the making where neither will look presidential." If you're the campaign, if you're doing preps, if you're a candidate and you're figuring out how you want to approach this, how do you approach those voters, the voters that matter, the folks who hate both of them, or the folks who truly are, small number of them, undecided?
Well, you got to count on that by this point that your base is your base and they're going to show up for you. And then you got to look at the voters who are still undecided and what do they think. For Biden, there is a big population, and it is really due to a political shift where working class blue collar voters have been attracted to Trump, not the Republican Party in general, but attracted to Trump. And Biden's got to win them back. It is people who live, and I'm just guessing here, with an income somewhere around $60,000, and the inflation since Biden took office, which by the way, Biden should point out started with all the money that Trump put into the economy after COVID. But that's a little bit that's hard for people to grasp. But anyway, that we've been in a recovery. But those people who are making that kind of money are really getting hammered at the grocery store and at the gas pump. And he really needs to win those people back, and he really needs to acknowledge them, and that this has been painful for them, but it's going to get better.
There's an op-ed by Hillary Clinton today. I'm sure you saw it, Sam. And she talks about the different things that can make a difference at this debate. And she says, I've debated Trump and Biden. Here's what I'm watching for. On Trump, she says, expectations for him are so low that if he doesn't literally light himself on fire on Thursday evening, some will say he was downright presidential. It was a very clever column, but I wonder where you stand on the expectations game. Is it just super low for both of them? How much does the expectations game matter, do you think, on Thursday?
I mean, I think it matters a great deal, honestly. I think she's right. The expectations for Trump are pretty low, partially by his own setting, right? I think we all remember the first Biden-Trump debate in 2020. He interrupted repeatedly both Joe Biden and the moderator. He literally had COVID, which was obviously quite problematic at the time. And he came out looking deranged, frankly. And I think that really harmed him, and it really helped Joe Biden. I don't expect Donald Trump to do that again, but that, there is that sort of expectation that he will say something wild and off the walls. And for Biden, of course, the expectations are that he might just fall over from exhaustion. And if he doesn't do that, then maybe he's cleared it. I thought a smart commentary was something like this, that Joe Biden was not totally debating Donald Trump on Thursday. He's debating the caricature of Joe Biden. And I think the same can be said about Trump. Ultimately, this is a visual experience for a lot of viewers. You go back to the historical Kennedy-Nixon debate. The people thought Nixon won when they listened to it on the radio, and they thought Kennedy won when you saw it on TV. I think the same is going to hold true here. The viewers are going to look at this as a visual experience, and that's where the expectation setting really comes into play.
Yeah, this is the most untraditional of campaigns, but I think one thing in tradition that holds true is people are still looking for someone who looks presidential, whatever that means, who sounds presidential, who presents presidential. It's going to be fun to watch. Rick Tyler, Sam Stein, thanks, guys. Much appreciated.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn, MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.